Welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at MySQL in Python. So, what is MySQL? Well, it's an open source relational database management system. And it's called My after the co-founder's daughter, and SQL stands for Structured Query Language. So quite simply, it allows you to connect to databases and manage them. You probably don't have a database knocking around that you can just connect to and use, but fortunately Python has a built-in module called SQLite 3, and that allows you to connect to databases locally without taking up loads and loads of storage or anything, and that's really great. And there are other ways of managing and connecting to databases, but we're going to be using MySQL and maybe have a look at another one another time. So to start with, we're going to import SQLite 3 and requests. And the first thing we want to do is connect to a database. So we'll say with SQLite 3 dot connect to database dot db as connection. So we're connected to the database. We'll just print connected to database, and that's it. And you can see it's connected to database, and it's created a database file here. And we're actually going to be using this SQLite 3 viewer to view our database. And you can see currently there are no tables, it's completely empty. So the first thing we should do then is create a table. So databases are made of tables, and that's just, you can think of it as a grid of data where you've got rows and columns, and each row is unique and stores specific data, and each column determines what's in the row. So we'll create a very simple database, and we'll say that we're going to create a table if not exists. So this means we only create it once, and we're going to call it words, and it's going to have a value called word, and that's it. So one column, and that type is going to be text rather than string. It's slightly different with databases, and this is the primary key, so that means it has to be unique. And then we can just say connection.execute query. And so it doesn't look like much has happened. But you can see here now we've got a table called words, and it's got 0 rows. So the next thing we should do is fill in that table. So we should probably come up with a list of words. And rather than manually writing out loads of words, we're going to get this page from GitHub, which has a list of lots of common words. It's not got loads because I've seen some repositories where they've got the entire English language, but it's got a lot of words. So we'll copy the URL, and then we'll use requests, and we'll get this page, and then we'll loop through it, and what we'll do is we'll take the text and then we'll split it. So now every time there's white space, which in this case means a new line, it turns it into a new item of our list. And then we'll just put the line into the words list, and at the end we'll print words, and you'll see there are quite a lot. So there are all the words we've just taken. So then we want to populate our database. And I know this isn't doing anything anymore, but it was just there to stop us parsing, so we'll take it out. So we'll say for word in words, our query is going to be insert into words, which is the name of the table, word, to specify that we're inserting into the word column, although it doesn't really matter in this case, values, and then we put the values in brackets, and then because it's text we need quotes, and then we'll just format it with the word. And there are other ways of doing this. So we could actually insert all the words in one query, but we're just going to do this for now because it's fairly simpler. And then we'll print the query so you can see what it's doing, and then we'll execute the query. And so you can see it's looping through and executing queries, and it's actually created a journal so that it can update the database. And you can see it's all updated. So if we go here, you can see now the first 30 words, and if we press next you can see the next 30 and so on. And it's actually telling you the query that it's executing to get all these words. However, interesting, if we try running this exact code again, it says here a unique constraint has failed on words.word because it's found that AA is already in the table, so it can't put it back in again. So now we should probably select some words. So as you can see, this is one way of selecting. So we could say that we're going to select everything, or we could just say word. It doesn't matter because we've just got one table. So we'll say select everything from words where the word is like, and then we're going to say any word that begins with a Y. So that means Y and then anything else. And this time we want to store the result. So we'll save it in result. And then we want to actually look at it. So if we just print result, you see that it's not that useful. It's just a cursor. Sometimes you call it cursor instead of result, but it's just easier to remember it as a result. So we'll fetch one. You can also fetch all and fetch many. Fetch many is quite uncommon, but fetch one and fetch all are a bit more common. So if we run it now, you can see it's going yar, which is the first one because they're sorted alphabetically, and then all the other ones beginning with Y. However, notice that yar hasn't been in this fetch all, it's just in the fetch one. And if we swap the order of the lines, you see it fetch all fetches everything else, and so when it comes to fetch one, there's nothing there. But what if we wanted to select the longest word in our database? Well, one thing we could do is we could find out the max length first. So we'll select the max length of word from words. And so what this does is it selects the length of each word and then it looks for the max. So if we actually take the max out temporarily so you can see what's going on, again we can say result, we execute the query, and then we can just print result.fetch all. And you can see it's done a tuple of all the results. And then if we change this back to max, see this time it's just 20. And really we should just keep it as fetch one because there will only be one max. So that's the length. And we will remember that. But actually the length is the 0th value because this is a tuple. And if we try putting it straight into our next query, it won't work. So then we'll say our query is select word from words where the length of the word is equal to, and then we'll just put in the length. And then we want to execute it, and then we want to print the result.fetch all. So we'll see all the words that have this length. And you can see the words that it's come up with are uncharacteristically, and that's it. So one thing to notice here is that we actually made two calls to the database. So first we executed this, and then we executed this. But there's actually a nice way of combining these queries in SQL. So what we do is we take this query, and we update this so that it gets the maximum length, and then it looks for a word that matches that length. And so these two are the same. We've just done less logic in Python and more in SQL. And there are lots of advantages of doing this, especially for more complex operations. There are, however, other ways of solving this problem, and of course this is the fastest way of doing it, but there are some other cool things you can see by trying it other ways. So this time again we'll select the word from words, but we'll order by the length of the word, and this time if there are more than one, it's not going to work immediately, because what we'll do is we'll just fetch one. However, you'll notice this time it's ordered them in ascending length order, so we need to put the DESC to say descending order so that we get the longest one, and you can see that's worked. However, what if this time it turns out that there are multiple words of this length? Well, here what we can do is we can say, well, okay, so if we put in a length here, so our length is equal to 0, and what we're doing is we're fetching the word from result and we're storing that in the variable word. We're then taking the 0th item, which is the word itself, and working out its length, and if that's greater than or equal to the length, then we print the word, and we want to set the length equal to the length of the word. And you can see that there is a slight error here where we actually want to set the length of word 0 because the length of word is just 1, and that has worked. And of course this is an overcomplicated way of doing it, but it shows you that you can do logic either at the side of the database using a bunch of queries, or you can do it using Python logic. And of course, if you wanted to speed up that logic, you might want to use NumPy or pandas to make it even more efficient. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video, you've seen the power of using MySQL in Python, and I'll see you again same time next week. Till then.